A relationship requires that you create an environment where another person can be safe with you, however they are. In other words, you know, I don't teach relationship training. Sometimes I wish I could, but I don't have a degree, so I can't. But I would say that the relationship, a real relationship, is a relationship where you actually like or love another person enough so that they can be exactly the way they are and exactly the way they are not. You don't decide how they ought to be ahead of time. You let them be however they are, and then you choose that. Now, that's a little deep, and I don't want to go too far with that, but I want to say that when the customer walks into your environment, you need to make sure that your words, your phrases, and your examples, your product, your service, your demonstration, your walking around the location, whatever it is you do, never makes them feel wrong or stupid. So write this down. Never make your customer feel wrong or stupid. Now, there is not a rule that I have in anything that I do in my whole life that is more important than that one. Because I know that people would rather be right than anything else. Now, just think about this for a minute. This is profound. People would rather be right than anything else in the world. They murder other people while they're being right. They give up themselves and their business while they're being right. It is your job to create a space, a room, an environment where when the customer calls you or the customer walks into your office, they can go, gosh, I'm glad I'm here. I feel so safe here. I feel like I did the right thing. All they want is to do the right thing. Now, you know and I know that this happened to me when I first met my darling husband, Judy McKee. I had been married about 6 weeks, and I woke up one morning and he was different. I don't know why. I didn't know why, but I looked at him and I said, what's the matter with you? You're not the same as you were yesterday. And he said, oh, yes, I am. And I said, are you angry with me? He says, no. I said, oh, yeah, I think you are a little angry. And he goes, no, I'm not. And I said, Jimmy, I can tell there's something between us. What's going on? And he says, there's nothing wrong, but I'm starting to get irritated now. Leave me alone. And he went to work. I immediately picked up the phone and I called my best friend Sandy. And I go, Sandy, oh my gosh, Jimmy's really mad. He's going to leave me. I think he's already realized he married a woman with 3 children. And maybe that was a mistake. He's going to dump me. She says, no way. He's not going to dump you. He's crazy about you. And I said, well, he's sure acting funny and I can feel it. And she said to me one of the greatest sentences that I ever heard, and I've never forgotten it, and I share it in every single training. And she said, well, are you making him wrong? And I said, making him wrong? I don't make him wrong. I make him the king of Van Nuys. And she said, well, maybe you're making him wrong in your mind. And I said, well, how would he know if I'm making him wrong in my mind? And she said, well, he can feel it, like a vibration or something. Maybe you're putting out there something that's making him feel wrong or stupid. And now the reason she said that is because we had taken a class in the 70s about communication skills from a wonderful trainer by the name, I now remember his name. His name is Ted Long, and he was a great creator of a training room. And he had come out in this training, it's called Communications Workshop, and he said to everybody in the room, he said, everybody in this room wants to dominate everybody else without being dominated. And everybody in this room wants to actually control everybody else without being controlled. And everyone in this room would like to make absolutely everybody else wrong and themselves right. And I raised my hand immediately, and he looks down at me and says, what do you want? And I said, well, I don't do that. And he says, what are you talking about? You're doing it right now. And I looked at him like, wow, he's right. And so I said to Sandy, I said, Sandy, you're right. I'm somehow making him wrong. I don't know how I'm doing it. And she said, that's the next thing. She said, this was the most powerful thing in my life, this phone call. It was like you would call an epiphany. She says, spend one day thinking about what you're thinking about. In other words, spend one day of your life. Would you give it up in order to learn about yourself? One day where you just think about what you're thinking about all day long. See how you're thinking. Most of us are on rails. We don't think about what we're thinking about. We do what we did before. We think what we thought before. We think what our mother told us. We think what our boss said, but we never think about that we're thinking about that. So I said, okay, I'll spend a day thinking about that. Well, of course, I went to work and I didn't think a thing about that. I went to work. I was in real estate then, and I just did my job. I came home. I got home about 4:30. Jim had not come home yet, and as he pulled the car in the driveway, I look down out the window and I see where he's parking the car, and I say in my mind, why is he parking the car there? I won't be able to get my car out. What a terrible place to park. And then I heard this little voice in the back of my head say, you just made him wrong, Judy. Mentally, you just made him wrong for parking incorrectly. And I went, oh my gosh, he's not even in the house. I made him wrong already. Now he comes in the house, and when he's in the house, he says, hi, honey. He says, let's go to the store. I want to make an Irish stew. So I say, oh, okay. So we get in the car. We drive down the driveway. We drive down to the corner where there is this 8-sided sign. And right there on that 8-sided sign, it says S-T-O-P. Well, he does not stop. He slides around the corner with a California stop or whatever they call it. And I immediately go on automatic with, oh, well, Jim, don't do that. That's really dangerous. By the way, you could get a very expensive ticket for that. I mean, you actually have to stop the car. And when you stop the car, it means you lurch forward a little, and then you lean back, and the whole car comes to a complete stop, and that's what a real stop is. And I hear myself giving him a lecture, and I just put my hand over my mouth. And I stop. And I say, don't do this. And he looks at me weird, and he goes, what's the matter with you? And I go, I don't know. I can't tell you. Just never mind. Let's go to the store. So now we get in the parking lot of the store, and he drives up and down and up and down and up and down. I don't know why men have to do this, but they do. They have to drive up and down until they find exactly the right spot for their car, especially if they live by love me, love my car. And I would have been in the store 5 minutes ahead of this, but nevertheless, I found out I was making him wrong in my mind again. Now we get in the store and things get really bad now. I'm paying very close attention to my mind. And my mind is making him wrong for the cart he picked, for the carrots he chose. He chose long carrots where you have to peel them. Excuse me, I would have chosen the long carrots that you have to peel. But he went for the little bag of already peeled carrots, which cost 3 times the amount of money. He buys the wrong celery, the wrong onions, and when he gets to the tomatoes with the little green thing on the top, it's growing out of it, it's all organic and expensive. And I'm thinking, why is he buying this for a stew? He wants to make an Irish stew. And so I stop him, and I say, Jimmy, we have to stop. We have to have a talk right now. I said, this morning when you said you weren't mad at me, now I know you are mad at me, and you really are mad at me, and here's what's happening. I said, you are understanding that somehow deep in my mind I make you wrong for absolutely everything you do, and you've decided that you've probably done the wrong thing to marry this woman with 3 children, and maybe it was an attempt to be wonderful to us, but on the other hand, it's pretty scary to marry a woman with 3 children, and you should get out of this relationship as fast as you can, because all I do is make you wrong. I make your driving wrong, your stopping and starting of cars wrong, your parking wrong, your vegetables wrong. I mean, so far, there's practically nothing that you've done right, and I'm doing that in my head all the time, and who would want to live with someone for 30 years who did that to you? And he says, guess what, Judy? He says, I don't want to leave you. I don't want to leave this relationship. He says, and guess what else? He says, I do exactly the same thing to you. And I said, how can you do the same thing to me? I'm always right. He says, oh no, you're not. And he says, but we can fix it, and we can fix it right now, because I don't want to get married again. I want to love you for the rest of my life. And I said, you know what, Jimmy, I want to love you too for the rest of my life, and I want you to love me, and I want us to hang out together till we grow old and die. And that more importantly, I said, I don't care what kind of carrots or celery you eat. The only thing I really care about is that we bring up these 3 children to be good citizens of the world. That's our job. And then to love each other until death do us part. And he says, that's cool. I agree with that, and let's do that. And he says, but we are going to have to set up a couple of rules. And this is where my whole life changed. He said, if I make you wrong, Judy, he says, you can say to me, oops, or ouch, and I will immediately change what I said so that it does not make you wrong or stupid. And if you don't know if I'm making you wrong or stupid, you can say, are you making me wrong? And I will look at what I just said, and I will change it so that it does not make you wrong. He says, because you are the most number one person in my whole life. And he says, I am not going to spend my life making you wrong. And I said, well, Jimmy, I will do the same for you. I will not make you wrong either. And he says, then let's make an agreement right now that we are not going to make each other wrong or stupid for the rest of our lives. And if we do and we forget and we make a mistake, we're going to fix it instantly. The moment the other person tells us, are you trying to make me wrong? The other person will then immediately fix what they just said so that it does not make their partner, their lover, their husband, their wife, their friend wrong. And I said, okay, that's a deal. And he says, and now, just to finish this off really well, Judy, let's make a new commitment. Instead of this death do us part business, which we know we're both liars, we told that to 2 other husbands and wives before. And I said, yeah, that's right. He says, well, instead, let's have a new commitment. He says, I am going to commit to you, Judy McKee, that I am going to make sure you have a wonderful time for the rest of your life. A wonderful time for the rest of my life. And I said, if you'll do that for me, Jimmy, I'll do the same for you. And he says, all right, that's a deal. That's our new commitment. And we spent the next 32 years doing that. And he did pass away. I'm so sorry, and I miss him like crazy. But we had a life that was fantastic. Now, I want to tell you how that relates to your job right now, your life and your job. When I went home that day, and actually it was the next day, when I realized not only do I make him wrong, I make the whole world wrong. I make all my customers wrong. I make my customers feel wrong and stupid. I make sure they understand they're doing the wrong thing instead of making them feel right and smart to do business with me. So I changed every word that I said to my customers from that day forward. I changed every single thing. I said, you know what? Those people are just like me. They want to be right and never be wrong. They want to control their environment and never be controlled. They want to be dominating their life and not having me dominate it. And so what I can do is I can make sure that they feel right and smart when they're doing business with me. And I made up my mind that day to do it, and I did it, and I have been successful with absolutely everything I've ever done since. And the same thing can happen to you.